some other examples related to this window function. Okay, we previously just focused on this definition that we try to retrieve a block of rows starting from 4 rows prior to the current row all the way to 1 row prior to the current row within the current partition. Okay, let's change this definition a little bit and see if we can understand how this window function works. Okay, so let's see if we change this to, instead of -4, let's go -3 to +1. Okay, relative position. So what does this mean? How this window is gonna look like? Okay, suppose we are currently working on this row. All right, so then we're gonna retrieve a block of rows, and the block of rows is gonna start 4 rows prior to the current row. So that's gonna be, again, we're talking about 3 rows prior to the current row, but has to be within the current partition. So the current partition is determined by the current row. So the current row is regarding forward. That means the current partition is going to be this orange partition related to forward. Okay, so 3/4 or 3 rows prior to the current row is going to be this row. All right, so the starting point of this window is going to be this row, row 10. All right, then the ending point or the ending position for this window is going to be 1 row after the current row. Okay, again, the current row is this row 13. Okay, current row is row 13. So 3 rows prior is going to be row 10, and 1 row after is going to be row 14. So we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 rows together. All right. So this is going to be the block this window function is going to take. Right, based on the current row of this guy. Okay, I'll mark the current row with a different color. Okay, this is the current row we're working on, and we try to retrieve 3. The starting point is going to be 3 rows prior, so it's going to be here, and the last row is going to be 1 row after the current row, so it's going to be here. So altogether, that's the rows we're going to retrieve using this window function. And of course, notice that all the 5 rows we retrieve is actually within the same partition we're currently working on. All right, so let's do another example. Okay, let's make this say, instead of relative, let's use the absolute. Okay, ABS. So if we use ABS, it's going to be the absolute position. So if we go from 1 to 4. So this is regarding absolute position instead of a relative position. So when we talk about the absolute position, again, we're talking about what's going to be the current partition. The current partition, for example, if we're still working on this row, the current partition is going to be determined by the current row. The current row is related to forward. So the current partition is going to be this orange block. All right. So we're taking within this orange block 4 rows. Starting, the first row is going to be the very first row in this block. Okay. And the last row we're going to take is going to be the 4th row in this block. So we're basically taking 1, 2, 3, 4, this 4 rows. Okay. If, for example, we change this to, okay, again, absolute position, 3 to 5. Okay, and again, assuming we're working on this row now, the current row is this row 13. Okay, so again, current row determines what the current partition is. It's going to be the 4th partition, the entire orange block. So within this partition, we're going to take a block of rows, starting at the 3rd row of this block to the 5th row of this orange block. So it's going to be this is going to be the third row in this orange block, okay, all the forward partition, right? And the fifth row of this forward partition is going to be here. So we're going to go from row 12 all the way to row 14. Those three rows is going to be taken out by this window function. All right. Okay. So let's make this window function actually again. Let's do a negative thing. Let's go from -3 to negative, well, -4 to -1, -2. Okay. If the absolute position starts -4 and ends at -2, what does that mean? Again, let's assume we're working on this row. So the current partition is this entire forward block. So what's gonna be the -4 in terms of absolute position? It's gonna be, so because this is gonna be the last row of 4, so this is gonna be -1. Okay, row 17 is gonna be -1. Row 16 is gonna be -2. Row 15 is gonna be -3. Row 14 is gonna be -4. So we're gonna start at this row, okay, and we're going to go all the way to -2, which is row 16. So this three rows together, okay, row 14, 15, 16 is basically gonna be returned by this window function.